we have a major update revolving around the Phoenix Suns and something that I'm not going to lie to you is not what you want to hear. As Brian Gregory and Matt Ishby are still trying to make some plans on restructuring this roster, there's one name that still seems to be a sticking point with Phoenix, and we have some latest news revolving around that, as well as it could be a complicated situation for Jordan Ott and this Suns squad getting into the off season. So how can the Suns get out of the situation? What could they potentially do? We'll be diving into all of that and more on this episode of Suns Digest. I am Bruce Veliz, and you guys have been fantastic. You've been showing your support, which has been really appreciative over these last couple of weeks. I really do want to say thank you guys so much for hitting the like button, letting us know your thoughts down below in the comments, and by hitting that subscribe button as we've been rising up through the ranks, and it does really mean a lot as I try to do this. So if you got any thoughts about the Suns, let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. How you feeling? Still the highs of the draft, or are we still now looking forward into the new moves that are going to be coming for the Suns, and what else has to be done to restructure this team? Without further ado, though, let's dive into this video at hand. Make sure to grab that snack, and let's get into it as we go over what is going on with the Phoenix Suns. As the latest update has us all kind of scratching our heads and being a little bit more confused, as we see here from PHNX Sports, but originally from Fred Katz of the New York Times, that Beal would be open to the right trade, but his preference is still to remain in Phoenix. And Gerald Bourguet wrote about this before the season had ended, but he had his little snippet here that he posted, which I want to give him credit for, saying, despite numerous reports about the Suns wanting to trade Beal over the last few months leading up to the NBA trade deadline, Mark Bartelstein, James Jones, and multiple other sources confirmed that the Suns never asked him to waive his no-trade clause. I don't ever operate in absolutes in anything, Bartelstein said. If there was a trade that we thought was a great win for everyone, then yeah, you always should have an open mind. But Brad's focus the entire time was on helping the Suns getting the season turned around and trying to get wins. There was never anything that got to the point where we was thinking of considering anything to talk about in doing a move. And we all know that has been confirmed, right? The Suns have not, and I repeat, have not asked Bradley Beal to waive his no-trade clause yet, and that's all due to the fact that they haven't found a trade for him to waive his no-trade clause, right? There hasn't been these teams that are, foaming at the mouth, going, yeah, we'll take Bradley Beal at $50 million, but also with Bradley Beal having his no-trade clause, even if there were teams that were like, yeah, if you attach 2, 3 first-round picks, maybe an Oso Godaro, maybe a young piece alongside of Bradley Beal, even if those teams were interested, Bradley Beal gets the final say, because if it's a team like Utah or Brooklyn where he doesn't want to go, he can just go, wah, wah, not happening, and decline that trade immediately. So it's really a tricky slope for the Phoenix Suns and how they're able to maneuver this. But ultimately, with that all being said, I still think that Bradley Beal will not be here in Phoenix next season. As we all know, John Gambadoro, the man, the myth, the legend, the number one guy with all the insider news for the Phoenix Suns, hitting on the dimes with the draft relating to Malawach, relating to the Suns trading up to get Rasheer Fleming. He stated this back early in the month when times were tough, talking about what this roster was going to do before we had this bright outlook so far. He said that they do not want Bradley Beal back. But since he is untradeable at this point, and he does not agree to, and if he doesn't agree to a buyout, the Suns may be stuck with him. One of the questions they asked candidates during the coaching cycle was what you would do with Bradley Beal, but the Suns 100% don't want him and are looking at a way to get out. And it makes sense for multiple reasons, not only for the fact that when looking at this now roster here with the Phoenix Suns, courtesy of John Voita of Bright Side of the Sun, we can see that he just makes the most money on the roster, isn't available, isn't healthy, and is the same position as Devin Booker and Jalen Green, who are also shooting guards that play the same position and are also the two highest paid players. So you're telling me the Phoenix Suns are going to have 3 players that are traditional shooting guards that are all making the most on their roster, and you're going to expect me to think that they're going to keep all of them? That is not going to happen. One of these guys will be gone, and obviously Booker will be staying. They said they're going to keep Jalen Green. So Bradley Beal has to be the odd man out, right? Grayson Allen's another possibility, but the Suns need to shed salary. They need to shed around $16 million to drop below into that second apron, or drop out of the second apron into the first, and need to shed about $28 million to drop underneath the first and to get into that tax level. Now, I don't think they'll get to the tax level. I still think they'll be a first apron team this season, but getting into the first apron, that allows them to have access to a $5 million MLE, which can be more incentivizing than $3 million veteran minimum contract that the Suns were giving out to guys like Monte Morris and Tyus Jones and Mason Plumlee last season to get even some depth, but more secure depth because they're getting a little bit of a bump of a pay raise. They're more likely to take that deal with the Phoenix Suns, but also just to find in some new holes and new players. Now, once again, revolving around the Bradley Beal situation, there have been talks of him potentially being traded. Now, Gambo said earlier that he is untradeable and June 5th. He has said post then on the radio that there are teams that have expressed interest in Bradley Beal. Now, the Suns used a lot of that draft capital from the Kevin Durant trade to move up in the draft to get Rasheer Fleming and to get Kobe Bryant. So they are lacking in that department, but they still do have contracts to trade to try to get those picks, right? They have Cody Martin. They have Nick Richards. They have Oso Ighodaro if they have to attach him in a deal. They have Royce O'Neal. They have Grayson Allen. I wouldn't be shocked if the Suns looked to use one of these contracts and offloaded them to get 2, 3 second-round picks, and then maybe even use those second-round picks to offload Bradley Beal in a trade. Because not only just that, but if the Suns are doing a trade with Bradley Beal, instead of stretching and waiving him and buying him out, which is the other alternative, they're going to have to take back 2 or 3 other contracts in return. And at this point, that would put the Suns still in the second apron and just make things even more difficult. So guys will have to leave if they do a Bradley Beal trade. But even if they don't do a Bradley Beal trade, there's still the option of stretching and waiving him. And that becomes more complex with the Phoenix Suns, as we all know, because they'll be paying roughly around $18 to $20 million in the luxury, just into their salary without a player being on their roster. And that completely hinders how they can retool their team. So ultimately, the best move would to take Bradley Beal's contract, put him on the trade market like they have been doing, and trying to find a deal that not only helps the Suns, helps Bradley Beal, but also helps that team trading for Bradley Beal to get something agreed upon. And if the Suns get some expiring contracts or get some guys that, once again, aren't, great players, but are guys that are just going to be able to play a role for one season, then that's what you need for Bradley Beal. Because ultimately, with Beal sitting on the roster, like I mentioned, Devin Booker, Jalen Green, even Grayson Allen on this roster, Colin Gillespie most likely coming back, there's just no room in that guard position for him to play. Unless they're running Jalen Green at small forward, which I don't think that's the case, and Beal doesn't want to come off the bench, I don't know what the Suns are going to be doing. Unless he feels comfortable coming off the bench, making $50 million a year, playing a 6-man scoring role, then sure. But then Grayson's gone, and then other moves are gone, and then the Suns are still questioning that. I don't think Beal wants to do that, regardless of how happy he is in Phoenix, if he likes the weather, if he likes his family being here. I can probably guess that he wants to be starting, or even if he's not starting, having more impact of a role than what he is doing in Phoenix. Now, maybe those other teams in free agency will say, hey, you're not going to start, so maybe he does stay in Phoenix overall because there's no need for him to move. But I don't see him wanting to come off the bench. I don't want to see him. I don't see him wanting to go through that embarrassment like he did last season. I don't think he even wants to see a guy like Jalen Green being ahead of him in the depth chart. So I think that a guy like Bradley Beal ultimately will find his way out of Phoenix, regardless of the situation. And that's something we got to talk about. But there's always the uncertainty and always the possibility that he doesn't waive that no trade clause, and that no team that he's open to is going to trade for him, and as he is back in Phoenix. So let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Let me know how you guys feel. Like I said, the draft in the offseason has been so far pretty solid for the Phoenix Suns, barring how you feel of the fits of the Kevin Durant trade, the value that I think they got back now when looking at it in hindsight with what the Suns were able to accomplish is definitely very solid in a haul, and I'm excited to see what they can bring out there on the court going into next season. So let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. Let me know how you guys ultimately feel on this Phoenix Suns team, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Have a great rest of your day, and peace out, everyone.